The Frigatebird. Picture a bird that lives its entire life above the open ocean and physically can't land on it. Its feathers aren't waterproof, so one bad splashdown and it drowns. There's a reason other seabirds start throwing up the second a frigatebird's shadow slides over them. This is a jet black bird with a 7-foot wingspan that looks like a stealth bomber somehow terrified of a puddle. So instead of fishing the hard way, it hunts other birds in midair. When a booby or a tropic bird comes back from the sea with a full belly, the frigatebird chases it down, grabs a wing or a tail, and shakes until the victim coughs the meal back up. Then it catches the vomited fish out of the air before it can hit the water. The why is pure physics. Waterlogged feathers would sink it, so the trade was waterproofing for the biggest wing area relative to body weight in the bird world. That makes it a phenomenal glider and a terrible swimmer, which is exactly why theft became the cheaper option. And here's the thing about that pirate of the seas reputation. Turns out stealing only makes up about 5% of the average frigatebird's diet. It catches most of its own food skimming the surface. The robbery is the highlight reel, not the whole career. But every meal you catch costs calories to chase, and this bird worked out which part of the bill it refuses to pay. It built its whole body around one rule: never get wet, and it would rather mug a stranger than break it. The Great Skua. If you've ever been chased off a beach by a furious bird, it was probably a cousin of this one. The skua doesn't bluff, and it doesn't back down, and it picks fights it has absolutely no business winning. Then it wins them anyway. This is a heavy-set, hawk-like seabird, dark brown with a bright white flash on each wing, built more like a raptor than the gull it's related to. It finds a tern or a puffin flying home with a beak full of fish, then rams it in midair or clamps onto a wing until the smaller bird drops the catch. It'll go after birds 3 times its own weight without hesitating. That's like a person tackling something the size of a small horse, in the air, with no ground under your feet to brace against. On the breeding grounds, it skips the theft entirely and just kills and eats adult seabirds outright. The logic comes straight from the brutal math of polar seas. Catching your own fish burns calories you might not get back before the next storm. A bird that can reliably take someone else's catch skips the hardest, most expensive part of the whole process, which is the actual catching. It's basically the guy who never once brings his own lunch and somehow never goes hungry. It survives some of the harshest oceans on the planet by making very sure another bird does the fishing. The Spotted Hyena. You already have an opinion about this animal, and a cartoon probably handed it to you. The real one is nothing like the snickering scavenger you got sold. The most famous food thief on the savannah is usually the victim, not the robber. This is a sloping, heavily muscled animal that lives in clans run by females, with one of the strongest bite forces of any mammal on land. Those jaws clamp down with over 1,000 pounds of pressure, enough to splinter a giraffe femur, which is why a hyena can eat the parts of a carcass a lion physically can't. They hunt in coordinated groups with real tactics and stamina, and in a lot of ecosystems, they kill the majority of what they eat. Most people picture hyenas trailing lions and begging for scraps. Turns out, hyenas hunt most of their own food, and when a kill gets contested, it's frequently the lion moving in to steal the hyena's work. Studies in the Serengeti found that when lions and hyenas end up on the same carcass, the hyenas were the ones who made the kill more than half the time. The lions were the thieves. The scavenger label is propaganda, basically written by the bigger animal. For decades, the savannah's hardest worker took the blame for the savannah's laziest king. If you're enjoying learning about creatures like this, I post new animal deep dives all the time, and subscribing really helps. Thanks. The bald eagle. This is the bird on the seal, the coin, the back of the dollar bill, and one of the founding fathers thought it should be ashamed of itself. He called the national bird a coward, and honestly, he had the receipts. The bald eagle is a huge raptor with a 7-foot wingspan, white head, hooked yellow beak, glaring straight ahead like it dares you to say something. It's perfectly capable of catching its own fish, it just often decides not to. Instead, it watches an osprey hit the water and come up with a catch, then dive bombs the smaller bird and forces it to drop the fish, snatching the meal out of the air before it lands. It targets the osprey for one reason: The osprey already did the hard part. Why pay for the dive yourself when someone else already paid in full? This robbery has been going on so long it predates the country the eagle now represents. Benjamin Franklin complained about it in a letter in 1784, and the eagle hasn't changed its habits one bit since. Despite all the symbolism, Franklin wrote that the bald eagle is a bird of bad moral character that does not get his living honestly, because it robs the fishing hawk. The majestic loner on the flag is also a mugger. It's the coworker who lets you do all the work and then takes the credit at the exact last second. The face of a nation built on hard work spends its afternoons taking lunch money from a better fisherman. The black-backed jackal. This animal weighs less than a medium dog, and it makes a living standing a few feet away from things that could kill it in a single second. It survives among lions, leopards, and hyenas, not by fighting any of them, but by waiting for exactly the right moment. The jackal is a slender, fox-like canid of eastern and southern Africa, reddish tan with a sharp black saddle of fur running down its back. Its whole job is patience. It trails leopards, cheetahs, wild dogs, and hyenas, then darts in to grab a mouthful the instant a bigger predator pauses or steps back, and bolts before anything can react. It does some small hunting of its own, sure, but theft is the reliable paycheck. Think about what that actually means. It's pickpocketing predators 5 to 10 times its weight, close enough to feel their breath, gambling every single time that a stolen bite is worth the risk. A jackal can't outhunt a leopard, but it can absolutely outweight one. By letting the big cats spend all the energy of the chase and the kill, the jackal collects calories it could never afford to earn on its own. It's built like a coward, employed as a thief, and thriving at both. A leopard does the killing, a jackal does the collecting. Out here, patience is its own kind of weapon, and the ledger always balances in favor of whoever spends the least. The Snowy Sheathbill. In a place where almost nothing can survive on land, one bird worked out how to make a living entirely off everyone else's hard-won meals. It waits for the precise moment a penguin parent feeds its chick, and that's exactly when it strikes. The Snowy Sheathbill is the only land bird native to the Antarctic continent, a plump, all-white thing that looks weirdly like a pigeon that wandered onto the wrong landmass. It has no webbed feet, which actually makes it more nimble on land than the penguins it torments. It loiters around the edges of penguin colonies, watching, and when a parent leans down to bring up a meal of krill and fish for its chick, the sheathbill rushes in and knocks the food loose before it ever reaches the baby's mouth. It intercepts the meal in the half-second handoff between parent and chick. It pulls this off through an entire Antarctic breeding season, where one missed feeding can mean a dead chick, in a place with no second food source for miles. Antarctica gives away nothing, so a bird that produced none of its own food would die. The sheathbill solved that by parking itself at the one spot where rich, pre-caught food changes hands, and grabbing it in transit. A white pigeon mugging penguins on an ice sheet for a living. It found the single moment in the coldest place on Earth where a free meal hangs in the air, and it built an entire life around being there to catch it. The honey badger. This thing is about the size of a small dog, and it has a well-documented habit of robbing animals that could kill almost anything else on the continent. It'll pull a meal straight out of the jaws of a snake that's very much still alive. The honey badger is a stocky, low, wide little tank with loose, thick skin, a silver-gray stripe down its back, and an expression of complete and total indifference to everything around it. It hunts plenty of its own food, but it steals just as happily. It snatches rodents and other prey directly off snakes mid-strike, scavenges fresh kills the moment a bigger predator backs off, and shrugs off venom that would flatten almost anything its size. To a honey badger, mugging a cobra is just lunch. A honey badger will face down a lion over a single scrap, which is a 25-pound animal challenging something pushing 400 pounds, and it walks away with the food often enough that it keeps right on trying. Here's the part people get wrong. That fears-nothing reputation is real, but the reason isn't bravado. Turns out it's biology. The loose skin lets it twist free of almost any grip, and a partial resistance to venom means a snake guarding a kill isn't a threat, it's basically a delivery service. The boldness is a calculated bet, not recklessness. When the safest way to take food is from something that can kill you, you have to be built like a creature that simply doesn't care. The raven. This is one of the very few animals that chooses to hang around wolves on purpose, and it's not for protection, it's for the leftovers. But ravens don't follow the wolves around. They've already figured out where the wolves are going. The common raven is among the smartest birds on Earth, a glossy black bird, bigger than you'd expect, with a heavy beak and eyes that look like they're quietly doing math. It associates with wolf packs to feed on their carcasses, and for years, everyone assumed it simply trailed the hunters and waited. Recent tracking flipped that. Scientists expected followers and found masterminds. The ravens were remembering which areas wolves tend to make kills, then flying straight there to wait. One tracked raven covered roughly 150 kilometers in a single day, which is like commuting across a small country for dinner, guided by nothing but memory of where wolves get lucky. A raven can't bring down an elk, so it does something smarter. It banks the locations where wolves succeed and turns that memory into food, stealing access to the kill just by knowing where the kill will be. The old picture of ravens blindly tagging along behind a pack is outdated. Turns out, the studies found almost no cases of a raven following a wolf any real distance. It's basically the friend who never drives, but always somehow knows the best place to eat. It doesn't need to be at the hunt. It just needs to know where the hunt usually ends. The smartest move in nature isn't always the strongest one. Sometimes it's just remembering where the strong ones tend to lose. The Lappet-faced Vulture. At a carcass swarming with dozens of squabbling vultures, one bird walks in and the entire crowd quietly steps back. It often shows up last, and somehow still eats first. This is the largest and most powerful vulture in Africa, with a wingspan around 9 feet, a pink, bare, deeply folded face, and the heavy build of something that has never once been told no. It looks like a bald, wrinkled bouncer wearing a tuxedo of feathers. It has one of the strongest beaks of any vulture, which lets it tear through hide and tendon that smaller scavengers physically can't open. Its strategy is dominance, plain and simple. It muscles smaller vultures off the best feeding spots, and it'll rob other birds of prey of their fresh kills too. A 9-foot wingspan looming over birds half its size is the difference between a delivery van and a bicycle at the same intersection, and the van always wins the right of way. People lump all vultures together as patient scavengers waiting their polite turn. The common version of that is wrong. At a carcass, there's a strict, brutal pecking order, and the lappet-faced vulture enforces it by force, eating wherever it pleases. By arriving late and dominating, it lets the smaller birds find the body and open the easy parts. Then it simply takes over once the hard work is done. It doesn't need to be first to the body. It just needs to be the biggest one standing over it. The fork-tailed Drongo. This is the most unsettling thief on the whole list, because it doesn't use strength or speed. It uses your trust against you. Its victims keep falling for the exact same con, and the Drongo knows precisely why. The fork-tailed Drongo is a small, glossy black songbird of sub-Saharan Africa, slim with a deeply forked tail and a steady, knowing red eye. In the Kalahari, it works as a sentry for meerkats and pied babblers, giving honest alarm calls when a hawk shows up, and most of the time, it's a genuinely reliable lookout. That's the whole setup, because every so often, when a meerkat digs up something really good, the Drongo gives a false alarm. The meerkat bolts for cover, drops its meal, and the Drongo swoops in and takes it. About a quarter of everything a Drongo eats comes from these lies, and when its targets start wising up and ignoring one fake call, it switches to mimicking a completely different species alarm, staying one con ahead of the animals it robs. Even the scientists studying it got fooled by the fake calls at first. The Drongo can't outmuscle a meerkat for a gecko, so it weaponizes information instead. It puts in real effort being an honest sentry most of the time, because the lie only works if the truth is usually reliable. It's stealing the one thing nothing else out here even touches, the victim's own fear. Alarm calls are supposed to be honest, simple warnings. Turns out at least one bird treats the warning as a tool for fraud, faking it and even impersonating other animals to keep the scam fresh. Every other thief on this list had to get close to the food. This one figured out you don't steal the meal, you steal the fear, and the meal comes free. If you made it all the way here, you clearly like the weird, ruthless side of the animal world as much as I do. I post new animal deep dives like this every week, so hit subscribe and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.